Welcome to the joint general session of the ISO Board of Governors and WEIM governing body. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and all attendees are muted at this time to reduce background noise. During the public comment portion of the call, you may press the raise hand icon on your Zoom screen or press #2 on the phone only line to enter the public comment queue. With that, I'll go ahead and turn the call over to Roger Collington with the California ISO. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Silas, and welcome everyone. I'm Roger Collington, Corporate Secretary, and let's start out with the roll call for the governing body and the board, and we'll do this in alphabetical order. Vice Chair Borenstein.
Present.
Chair Campbell.
Here.
Member Decker.
Here.
Governor Edo.
Present.
Governor Galitova.
Present.
Vice Chair Konziolka.
Present.
Governor Leslie.
Present.
Member Prescott.
Present.
Chair Shorey.
Here.
And Member Wagner.
Here.
Thank you, governing body and board. We have a full complement of members and a quorum, so we may proceed. At this point, we'll go to one, which is welcome from our chairs, and then general public comment. And Chair Shorey, let's start with you.
Great, thank you, Roger. Welcome to all of you, and thank you for participating with us today in what should be a very interesting session with an update on how the ISO and Pacific Corp are progressing with the work towards rolling out the new extended day ahead market. So thank you to Pacific Corp. It's always good for us as the board members of our respective organizations to hear directly from the people doing the work, and I'm sure this is going to be very informative. And then for all of us who are weather nuts, at least I am, I like to watch the weather reports. We have an item on our agenda, which is a review of the analysis on forecasting weather for the availability and need for certain resources. It's disguised as a briefing on the mosaic quartile regression analysis, which I think may be my favorite name of a report so far at the ISO. So we'll all look forward to that. It's an arcane name for a very interesting topic. I'll turn it over back to you, Roger.
Thank you, Chair Shorey. Chair Campbell, welcome and comments.
Yeah, thank you, Roger, and good afternoon. Thank you for attending today's meeting. I'd like to express my welcome to Governor Jan Shorey in her role as ISO Board Chair, and to Governor Severin Borenstein in his role as Vice Chair. I enjoy reading the Q&A with Chair Shorey that was published this week on the California ISO Energy Matters blog. She discussed her background and the challenges she sees ahead. I learned that she was a college debater, and I'm going to keep this in mind as we continue to work together. And I really liked how she sums up the California ISO's unique expertise in that Q&A. She says, while others talk about the transition to renewable energy, we are doing it every day and making it work. It's an excellent summation of where we are right now. Welcome, Chair Shorey. I'll hand things back to Roger.
Thanks, Andy.
Sure.
Thank you, Chair Campbell. At this point in the agenda, we provide an opportunity for public comment for items that are not specifically listed on the agenda. So Silas, if you could instruct folks to enter the comment queue if they have any general public comment.
If you would like to make a general public comment, you can press the raise hand icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen or press #2 on our phone only line.
I don't see any public comment. Do you, Silas?
No, there are no hands up in the queue at this time.
Excellent, thank you. We will move to agenda item number 2, which is our decision on the November 8, 2023 joint general session minutes. And I need a motion for the ISO Board of Governors and WEIM governing body to approve the joint general session minutes for the November 28, 2023 joint meeting. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second. I'll second. This is Rob.
Thank you, Jan and Rob. And I will take the vote individually, as we like to do on the Zoom call. So Vice Chair Borenstein.
Aye.
Chair Campbell,
Yes.
Member Decker,
Aye.
Governor Edo,
Aye.
Governor Golitseva,
Aye.
Vice Chair Konzioka,
Aye.
Governor Leslie,
Aye.
Member Prescott,
Aye.
Chair Shorey,
Aye.
and Member Wagner.
Aye.
Thank you, members and governing body members and board governors. The motion passes. And our next item on the agenda, we will turn to our CEO, Elliot Mainzer, for the CEO remarks.
Thank you, Roger, and hello to Chair Shorey and Chair Campbell, members of the ISO Board of Governors and WEIM governing body. It's wonderful to see all of you. I feel like the statute of limitations for Happy New Year has not expired yet, so Happy New Year to all of you again. And really excited about the meeting today. I think we've got a great agenda. All of us at the ISO are still feeling just extremely grateful and positive about the ruling from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission on EDAM in December. Just such a wonderful tribute to the incredible hard work of so many people across the West and at the ISO and your contributions as well to getting to that key milestone. And so we're really looking forward here in 2024 to turning the corner on implementation of EDAM, and certainly really pleased to have Christine Rock from Pacific Core to join us for that session on the onboarding and the implementation. So looking forward to that segment today. I'm also just going to very briefly highlight something that has been a real persistent theme for us here this week. I think, as you know, just last week we released the Q4 WEIM benefits, having crossed that $5 billion threshold of cumulative benefits. And, you know, these financial environmental benefits are really tangible and they're very impactful to the members of the WEIM and their customers. But we're also just wanting to really make sure that it's also equally emphasized, if not even more so, that the reliability benefits of our market continue to be incredibly important part of the whole value proposition. You know, being able to leverage the transmission connectivity and resource diversity that exists across the West, most recently with the very significant cold snap that hit big parts of the Northwest and the Rocky Mountains, was just another demonstration that we've really built something very powerful together and are just so excited to continue building upon that platform here in 2024. So very much looking forward to the meeting today. We're all in a mood of rolling up our sleeves and continuing to build and add value. So thank you for the opportunity, and we're looking forward to the following segments.
Any questions or comments for Elliot from the board or governing body?
Thanks.
At CAISO, I will turn it over to Khaled Abdulrahman, our VP, Power Systems and Market Technology. Khaled?
Yes, thank you, Roger. And Board of Governors and WEIM governing body chairs and members, good afternoon. I'm excited actually to give you an update on the activities that we are implementing for the EDAM, the onboarding, and a bit of the implementation. And I'm also excited that this is a joint presentation between myself and Kirsten Rock from Pacific Corp, Director of Policy and Analytics. So I'll start by giving a quick overview of what we have done so far. And the onboarding process that we leveraged a lot of lesson learned during the onboarding of the WEIM. We took a lot of lessons there, and we created the template for the onboarding of the EDAM entities. We are working on fine-tuning this process with Pacific Corp and Bank as we move forward with the onboarding. Of course, it was a Christmas gift for us before the end of last year when we received the FERC approval of our tariff changes. And as you know, there is one item that we are still working with our stakeholder on for the transmission revenue recovery. That process is, I think Anna, probably covers it, and maybe Becky also later on. We published external for both the EDAM and the day-ahead market enhancement because of The day-ahead market enhancement is the foundation that we are building the EDAM on. The business requirement is published. We have also published a schedule, proposed schedule for the onboarding itself when hitting the different milestones like the market simulation, parallel operation, and activation. We will work with Pacific Corp and Bank as they sign their implementation agreement to solidify those milestones. The we were working in parallel with our vendors because of the time constraint of how how fast we need to move on this initiative. So we worked with our vendors, software vendors. We have now a design that was submitted to us and we reviewed it, and the vendor now in the stage of starting changing or cutting code in order to support this initiative. We kicked off the onboarding process with Pacific Corp in May of 2023. We also kicked off the onboarding process with Bank in January of this year, and we're looking forward to continue that collaboration with both entities. There are also technical specifications that are required for the vendors of Pacific Corp and Bank to use those in order to change their internal systems. And we are in the process of publishing those. We published for the day-ahead enhancement, and we published 2 out of 6 for EDAM, and also the Tier 1 settlement charge codes. And we are looking forward in the rest of this year. The 2024 is going to be very busy year for us to first to meet with the different vendors that are providing service to Pacific Corp and Bank. We'll meet with them and have more of a focused group discussion with them of what system is needed. We'll take that as a blueprint and we will share it with the rest of the different users in a more public meeting. We'll continue to publish all of the technical specifications that are not published yet. And then we're hoping to execute the implementation agreements with Pacific Corp by maybe during the spring of this year, and also early summer for Bank. The expectation is to receive the software from the vendor by the end of this year so we can start our functional testing for that. Next slide is I'm showing just on a high level that some of the big milestones that we are trying to achieve, and specifically the EDAM market simulation, and also the parallel operation and the go live. So we are targeting and we're moving forward for a May timeframe for May 2026 as our target activation for the EDAM. Next slide, I wanted also to mention the focus is the middle track, but we wanted to make sure that the members of the board and the governing body, that when we put the onboarding process for the EDAM, we also integrated, it's part of an integrated effort between the EDAM and also what software changes that are required for this onboarding, that is in the first track at the top. And also we took into consideration the WEIM onboarding process for any new EIMs that we were. So this is a full integrated schedule. So we know how we can use our resources and we can support all of these activities without impact to any one of them. I'm not planning to go into the detail. I just put it there just for your sake. And it shows also the big milestones that we want. I want to also emphasize maybe one point, which is our commitment to our stakeholders to work with them on configurable parameter working group. That's part of the day-ahead enhancement. So that work is going to start probably towards the summer of this year, and we'll continue, and we will be testing those fine-tuning parameters during our parallel operation that will be in February or March of before we go live. That's basically the update from my side. I would like, if there is any questions, I'll be happy to take. Otherwise, I will turn it to Kristen for her update.
Okay. Hello, ISO Board of Governors and WEIM governing body. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this afternoon and provide you a bit of an implementation update from the Pacific Core perspective. My remarks will be really focused on three areas. The first is a bit about how we are approaching the implementation effort. Second will be kind of our view on all the work that has to happen in addition to connecting the pipes to the CAISO, if you will, the actual integration work and all the other work that onboarding entities have to complete. And then a few insights and lessons learned is probably not the right term, but insights at this point that we thought we would want to share with you on EDAM. Next slide, please. So speaking about our philosophy as the first entity jointly with bank, we are really taking this opportunity to look at this rather complex and effort that will touch a lot of elements of our organization as an opportunity for us to really not just upgrade the individual pieces, but also to future-proof our system and our processes and to make enhancements as we can. If you will, once we have the hood on the car open, we're going to be really taking a look at all the other pieces to make sure that 3 years after go live, we will still be happy with what we designed and what we build to onboard. So the first piece really is a holistic approach to system design and process upgrades. That really means asking a lot of questions, taking a look at how systems are set up right today. And again, mostly that is a function of the complexity of the system that Pacific Core has inside of our organization, not necessarily the connective points with the CAISO, which are very well defined. Albeit, as Khaled mentioned, not all fully completed the documentation yet, but that will be forthcoming. We're also really looking to leverage technology as much as we can. Some of those pieces are pretty simple. For instance, we now have set up shared Teams environment with the CAISO team to just simply make sharing of documents and questions and keeping track of information easier. We are setting up similar environments with bank as well, since we're collaborating with them. Other pieces that are kind of best practice solutions that are used typically in software development, we're deploying for our implementation effort. And then, of course, there is other aspects in terms of leveraging AI and machine learning, certainly not necessarily within Pacific Core, but we are looking, for instance, for vendors that will be able to support us on the forecasting of renewables, given their implications of the renewable forecast and the importance of that as it comes to the imbalanced reserve product and various downstreams effect in EDAM. Last but not least, we're looking to build bench that allows us to partner with the CAISO on a lot of the training curriculum and just bringing our organization holistically ready to implement and be at the starting lines in spring of 2026. All of that, the second pillar of our approach is really focused heavily on cooperation and partnerships. While I would like to say that that's always something people should come to, I think this is even more important when you're the first, and in our case with bank, we're going to have to figure things out. That means not just internally to collaborate, but as Khaled mentioned, we are very closely working with the CAISO team. We're very grateful that we have a project manager who happens to be located in Portland, so we have a lot of in-person meetings, which is incredibly helpful to our team. And we're also really lining up to do a lot more partnership with kind of our technology partners on this because some of these pieces simply need to be figured out. Next slide, please. The next slide here is really intended to give you a bit of an overview of how we see the work. And obviously let's start with the circle. The piece in orange that you see here is essentially all the work we're doing with the CAISO. That is the process Khaled mentioned. That's all the track meetings, all the technical specifications, all the collaboration there. And that's obviously one of the key aspects for us to go live. Having said all of that, an EDAM entity and us in particular, there's a lot of other associated work streams that have to be managed that need to be ready and done before we can go live. One of those aspects here is, of course, the update of the open access tariff for Pacific Core and the associated process of engaging with third-party customers. EDAM also, as you're well aware, will add new roles and responsibilities and or change some. That may not sound like a big deal, but depending on which software systems may need to be impacted, we need to do a lot of internal collaboration as well as working with our technology vendors to figure out who does what, which piece of data needs to be passed from which system to the other. All doable, just additional work to be done. PacifiCorp, as we mentioned, onboarded first to WEIM in 2014. A lot has happened in 10 years around us, within the organization, as well as with technologies. So we are having a number of foundational projects in 2024 that we are going to be developing and completing. Projects such as making sure all of the technology we need is migrated to the cloud before we are then adding the extra functionality to it. We also, because we onboarded with the first ones to onboard in WEIM, and the process that Khaled described was not at the time fully available to us, we actually have a bit of retrofitting to do to provide the CAISO with information and process tick boxes, and that now are available and are best practices in onboarding. Last but not, then we have process changes internally, externally, with partners. And then one element that we're excited about and feel we're going to be exploring and building is more data analytics. Obviously, the CAISO and the staff provides a good amount of data analytics to market participants already. We would like to have a little bit more, given the amount of changes in EDAM and going live, we would like to have more data analytics on our side to be able to see if things are working, how well are they working, where do we need to pay attention to. So that is going to be kind of an additional element to the work that the CAISO is already providing. On the right here are some additional kind of cross-cutting work streams that I would anticipate other EDAM entities may need to be prepared for as well. We'll start at the bottom, change management, perhaps obvious, going from WEIM to EDAM. There will be some changes. Some people's roles will adapt. The software systems will need to be adapted. So that's a piece we need to really be focused on. Communications, both internally in a large organization. We are part of Berkshire Hathaway, so we have a lot of communication needs that we need to make sure that our organization is ready and up to speed, well aligned. Obviously, software changes. We as PacifiCorp are looking at somewhere between 8 to 12 software changes that need to happen, or different systems that will need to be updated. Not all of them are directly connected to the CAISO systems. We have a number of internal systems we're using. So we are looking, kind of coming back to one of our implementation philosophy, holistically across all of these to see what can we streamline, where we can make enhancements, how can we enable the data analytics pieces. All of that then moves into procurement. That is everybody's favorite topic to talk about, procurement, but that's a real thing as we're looking to complete procurement activities for so many vendors in a very short, seemingly short timeline. So we're well on our way to do that. And then I mentioned metering here, although that might be a specific aspect for CAISO, for PacifiCorp. When we joined WEIM, some of the, we still have several generation resources that we are now looking to convert from non-participating and WEIM to participating. So there is an associated need to upgrade metering facilities and SQMD plans and the entire work stream. So we've been working on that. In terms of quick project status, to not get into too much detail, you see my little yellow icons here of the bricks. So we have essentially, that indicates work has started. We're well on our way. You will note that there's also some hourglasses that to indicate that we're kind of pausing a bit, and data analytics is one because we want to figure out the technical design and all the data flows and the process changes that we're going to be working with the CAISO on the training. And then, of course, the needed change in our access tariff and starting workshops and engagement with our third-party customers. We're currently waiting on that and are awaiting the CAISO's decision on how they are planning on addressing the transmission revenue requirement element. that needs to be additional information provided to FERC. Once we get more information about how that's being dealt with, we will then here internally come up with a plan for when we start those activities. Next slide, please. And wanted to just offer a few observations briefly. Most of them are almost obviously related to us being a first mover here. So our experience and bank's experience will be notably different from somebody that will onboard third after us, or maybe be the 10th or the 12th. So the more process, Khaled mentioned that the CAISO is working actively already on productizing the entire onboarding process for EDAM. Some of that is in development. We're seeking to provide feedback and collaborate heavily, but fundamentally the place we are now requires the CAISO as well as the PAC staff and our technology partners and bank to be really on the front foot with problem solving. There's a lot of things we still need to discuss. We are discovering still some things, and we need to figure out how to make progress even though there are still unknowns. And that brings me to the point about, you know, in an ideal case, the implementation team would have kind of the finalized entire kit to just kind of the blueprint to build our internal systems, work with the vendors. We're not quite there yet. As Khaled mentioned, that will all be coming forth. And but in the meantime, what that has meant for us here at PAC, and that we've really been pulling in some of our policy design folks, the folks that were involved in the creation of the market design, into the implementation effort. And the reason being is that typically the folks loving to do market design are not always the same ones that enjoy implementing complex software solutions. So there's a little bit of a mismatch there at times. So we've really taken the approach to bringing those teams together. So if you ask me, you know, sometimes how big our team is, our team is sized to kind of navigate and be agile and nimble and still be able to make progress kind of in the state where we are now, jointly with our partners. Last but not least, I've been asked multiple times already, kind of how does our experience scale? How much other work would other entities looking at EDAM could they expect? And the answer is that depends on who you are, of course, but you know, I would also say that depending on when an entity joined WEIM is likely related on how much opportunities they might have for kind of a holistic approach at their entire systems. Entities that may have more in the last 3 or 4 years joined WEIM, I suspect will have already done a more these foundational projects I mentioned, and kind of really migrating things to the cloud, and some of that tech debt that we are really working on now. So the lift for folks that onboarded later may be less than what we are experiencing, but that is that's probably it. And in my comments, I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any. Thank you for the opportunity to address you today.
Thank you, Kirstine. Thank you, Khaled. Board or governing body, any questions or comments for Kirstine or Khaled? It looks like Mary, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to thank you for the presentation. That was really insightful because, you know, being on this side of the table, you only see, you know, the design being made. You don't see what it's like for somebody to actually have to interface with it. I guess one of the questions I have is how much is this process that you just went through going to be applicable to other people, other entities joining the EDAM? Are you a model? Are you a model basically of best practices now? That's I'm just curious. Like, you know, will bank be able to learn from this? Will, you know, other entities?
I think there's a very good question. Thank you for that. We are, you know, aspiring to as we see issues, addressing them and building tools that make our lives easier that I could see others having similarly. I'll give you an example. The CAISO publishes the business requirements and both for EDAM and for DAME. I forget how many there were in there, 300 some. They get published per standard protocol in a PDF kind of a Word format. What that caused challenges for us was just having to have a lot of different departments weigh in and review all of this. So we ended up creating some tools that make that easier to kind of facilitate. So I think PacifiCorp is a bit of a unique organization, both in our complexity and when we onboarded in WEIM. I would say a lot of, the individual utilities will need to kind of size up their effort. And as I mentioned previously, I think a lot of this depends on when they did their last holistic review of the technology and the processes associated. There will be some changes. We are absolutely seeking to pass on learnings. We have started collaboration session with bank, and we are sharing and trying to offer tools that we're developing in-house, not claiming that they're the most beautiful ones or even the most practical ones, but anything that we found of value internally, we're sharing with the CAISO as well as to other entities, in this case bank. So I think we are all coming to this as a kind of a community effort of sorts, and certainly that is our philosophy and what I encourage my team to do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Rob, looks like you have your hand up next.
Yes, thank you. Kirsten, thank you for joining us today and sharing this information. Very helpful, very informative. And I hope you consider joining us again, sometime down the road for an update. I think it'll be very helpful to see how this goes. I kind of got a two-part question, and based upon your remarks, and you've got a lot of experience with the WEIM. And so the first part of the question is, does that experience of having implemented and then using the system for extended period of time, is that being helpful to your team in doing this implementation for EDAM? And then the second part is, since PAC first joined the WEIM, the rest of the West now is participating. And does that extensive participation in the WEIM helpful to PAC in your transition to implementing EDAM?
Thank you for those questions. I noted them down to make sure I can address them fully, since you had a two-part question. So addressing the first one, the short answer is yes. I think we have experience, and obviously anybody at this point actively being in WEIM and functioning and trading all have to have the same competencies and skills to be participating properly. Now, our experience, I think the key experience that we have that we are leveraging here and perhaps compelled us also to be willing to step in the car as the first driver in this regard was the experience and the confidence to say, it's not always going to be pretty, and it's going to be maybe at times rough, and we'll have to figure things out, but that we were willing to do that. And we have seen how, even though it was very difficult sometimes to be the first to come through, and now it is kind of just part of our lives, and we definitely have seen significant benefits for our customers coming out of WEIM, which is one of the key drivers that led us to, say that we are going to commit to EDAM, and that we very knowingly also knew that that meant that we would need to be the ones figuring it out with CAISO. And so I think the experience having been the first, as well as the duration being in the market, has been very helpful, as well as kind of the recognition that, we are doing something new, and that requires a particular kind of approach to things, and a particular personality, if you will, and that it does get better, and that these things get much smoother and more efficiently down the road. To your point, your second question about footprint, and at the end of the day, it comes down to footprint and the to be able to capture the diversification in the region. We are keenly interested of being able to model and try to blaze the trail here in order to make it easier for others to consider EDAM down the road. And we will do our part to collaborate, answer questions from whoever has an interest of doing that. Rob, did I answer your complete question?
Yeah, you did. And I do appreciate that. And I know that sometimes they're kind of awkward to get weird questions like that. But I do think your responses are very helpful for anyone listening to this and thinking about what's it going to take, because that transition that everybody made through the WEIM, it changed a lot over time. And it certainly got easier, got better. And as the modeling across the West was already incorporated, it made subsequent transition go easier and faster. And so your comments are terrific. So thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Anita, you have your hand up.
Yeah, so just a kind of a side question. So Kirsten, number one, great presentation. I think it was the right level to kind of give us this idea of what you're walking through. And I really appreciated the language you used in terms of cooperating with others and sharing with others and having kind of that open door to your learning. So I really do appreciate that a lot. But the question is, I think I heard you say that PAC was looking at bringing in some resources that are non-participating resources today. Do you have a sense of additional megawatts? And if you don't, that's fine. Maybe send me a follow-up afterwards, but I'm interested to know what you guys might be bringing on there.
So that is a knowable answer. I just don't happen to have that right here, and I'm happy to follow up with that. And it's a handful of units. So I rather than trying to remember and telling you the wrong information, I will simply offer to provide and follow up with that answer, if I may, Anita.
That'd be great. And thank you again. Thank you for the time today. This is really a great kind of teaser as to what you guys are doing.
Thank you.
Thank you, Anita. I don't see any more hands from the board or the governing body, so we'll go to public comment. And Silas, if you can check on the line and see if there are anyone from the public that would like to comment.
As a reminder to the attendees, if you would like to make a public comment, you can press the raise hand icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen or #2 on the telephone. There are no hands up in the comment queue at this time.
Can you still hear me?
Roger, we're not hearing you. You kind of went in and out.
I did. I got booted from the internet, but you can hear me now. I presume last I heard looked like there was no public comment. And I think we can go on to what would be your favorite, is the briefing on the mosaic quantile regression. Though only the second time I've said those words in a sentence together in my life. And with that, I will hand that to Anna McKenna, Vice President, Market Design and Analysis.
Well, thank you, Roger, and thank you for the opportunity for me to say mosaic quantile regression as well. Good afternoon, Board of Governors and governing body members. I am pleased today to introduce Amber Motley, our Director of Short-Term Forecasting, who will be providing you a briefing on where we are at with our evaluation of the mosaic quantile regression approach that we implemented about a year ago. And just as a bit of background, we adopted this new approach in response to some concerns and requests to ensure that the uncertainty that we use in calculation for procurement of the flexible ramping product, as well as for the evaluation of resource efficiency in the Western energy imbalance market, that uncertainty is as accurate as it can be. And as Chair Shorey noted earlier, this approach allows us to introduce some weather dependencies to better ascertain the uncertainty for both the flexible ramping product as well as the resource efficiency evaluation. But as is the norm, when we adopt these new innovative procedures, we continue to evaluate their performance. And Amber will be sharing with you the evaluation thus far as to how we see the approach performing. And we are also addressing and looking into some of the issues that have been raised, both from the Department of Market Monitoring as well as stakeholders with regards to the use of the approach and ensuring that it is used in the best way possible for these two areas of the market. So with that, I will turn it over to Amber and she'll provide you a little bit more details about the technical findings of her evaluation.
All right, good afternoon. Thank you, Anna, for such a great introduction, and hello, governing body. I'm happy to be here to talk a little bit about weather. I think the last time I was in front of you, we were talking about a solar eclipse. There is another one coming. You may see me again, who knows? But today, let's talk a little bit about uncertainty forecasting, which is another area the forecasting team works on very heavily. Before I dive in, I just want to, why mosaic? Why did we call it mosaic? I think that we can start there and then kind of dive into the details. So it like a piece of art, right? A mosaic is a collection of many different pieces of glass into a beautiful piece of artwork. One of the things that we were trying to do as we enhanced uncertainty forecasting was to really take together more pieces of information, those pieces really being forecast information that wasn't in the previous methodology, bring those key pieces of forecast information together into a beautiful picture to get us what that uncertainty is going to look like. And that is how we landed on the name Mosaic. Next slide. So as Anna introduced, it went live in February of 2023. This really was per stakeholder request. One of the questions and things that we had seen from the previous methodology is that it did not incorporate forecast information into the formulation of the uncertainty. And we really wanted to enhance the method to incorporate that forecast information. If you picture an uncertain forecast, right? I'm just going to take solar. This looks at load, wind, and solar, but let's just take solar as the example. On a fully sunny day, the amount of uncertainty that you have on the system on a fully sunny day is less. On a fully cloudy day, you also have less uncertainty on the overall forecast when it's completely cloudy. But on those partly cloudy days, you have a lot more uncertainty that's there. And we really wanted a method to take in that forecast information, help dictate what kind of day it is for the solar fleet, as well as the load fleet and the wind fleet, and really help form an uncertainty requirement that's reflective of the forecasted uncertainty that's going to be on the system. Another key piece is where is it's used, right? So the Mosaic methodology right now is used in 3 areas and 1 future area. So in the real time, it's used for the flexible ramp product requirements or FRP requirements. It's also used in the resource efficiency evaluation. In the day ahead for the CAISO BAA, it's used to help form the RUC uncertainty that might be on the system. And then in addition, in the future, it'll be used for the imbalance reserve requirements. Next slide. So with that, and any new forecast methodology, whether it be load, wind, solar, uncertainty forecasting, we're always evaluating its performance. You evaluate it for peak time periods, all hours of the day, any piece of information that can help you work to improve a forecast are always essential to be able to move forward with improvements and remain state of the art. So one of the things that we've really focused on is some of the areas of future improvements to be able to continue to keep a state-of-the-art methodology. Next slide. So one of the things we saw, the goal coming in was really to incorporate that forecast information and really help capture the periods of low uncertainty on the system with low requirement and high uncertainty on the system with high requirement. One of the things that you do see the mosaic methodology doing during those critical situations, it is better capturing the realized uncertainty. So the actual uncertainty that's sitting on the system. It has the ability to look at time periods where you have low uncertainty, give you less requirement when you don't need as much requirement on the system during those lower periods of time. It also has the ability to give you higher requirements when you see higher observed uncertainty on the system. It also has a smoother distribution over all the requirements. So if you picture a perfect line, typically the amount of uncertainty could increase, as different conditions change. You really want a methodology that can follow that line as best as you possibly can. And it has a smoother distribution between the areas of lower observed uncertainty and higher observed uncertainty. The other item that we see is it has a lower average requirement. That doesn't mean that at times it doesn't have a higher requirement, but on average, throughout all the periods of time, it does have a lower average requirement, which does allow the benefit of lower cost. Like any method, there are always opportunities for tweaking a few levers and improving those levers. We saw two of them as we were going through the overall analysis. One of them was in relation to the weekend performance, and I'll get into those details in a second. And then the other was in relation to the overall coverage. When you're analyzing an uncertainty forecast, our goal is to cover 95% of the uncertainty, and it's okay to not cover 5% that's outside of that. So you're not trying to cover all of the uncertainty that exists in the system. You're really trying, if you think of a probability distribution curve, you want to cover the big part of the bell, but the tails are okay to be not covered during that time. Next slide. So in the analysis, we see two areas of improvement potential. And with that, we wanted to simulate the overall different aspects underneath the hood of the methodology to help really improve the method overall. Some of the things that we look at for forecasting in general, whether it be load, wind, solar, uncertainty forecasting, is the sampling that you get when forming the method. So when you're looking back at your data, you want to look back at that data, and then the method wants to take that data and then form a forecast, right? So one of the things it likes is lots of data. So it wants to look back at more samples to help form a forecast going forward. So one of the things that's in the method right now, and this was also in the methodology on the previous method, which was the histogram, is the day type. Load has very different characteristics on weekdays versus weekends. It is a trait that's known for the load side. Load is within this. One of the things that you see is because of the growing penetration of the renewable resources throughout the WEIM footprint, that day type distinguisher is not as important as it was when the histogram methodology was developed. So we've trialed removing that overall, and you see that by removing it, you really do improve the overall performance of the methodology, but you also improve that weekend performance. And that really is driven from the fact that if you have a day type delineation, that the weekends only have, if you're looking back 180 days, you only have 50 sample days to be able to form that relationship on. So you really want more sample days to form that relationship. The next piece is how much historical data do we use? So you could use 3 years of data, 2 years of data, 1 year of data. You have to find that perfect match of what you use in your data set to help form the forecast. Ultimately, any forecast needs to have the conditions that it's trying to forecast for in the data set that it's using to form what that forecast is. So one of the things that is enhancing the performance as well is a new historical data sampling scheme. So right now we look in the rear view mirror 180 days. So from today to 7, you would look back 180 days, and that would help form the relationships going forward. What you see, and during this season, that might be okay, right? We're in the winter season, it's cloudy, it's rainy, it's cold. That's kind of what we have right now. But when you're in the seasonal transitions, of spring to summer, summer to fall, it's really critical that you look backwards. So maybe you look from today to 7 back 90 days, but then maybe you look to 8 of 2023 forward 90 days so that you can help capture that seasonal change that's happening on the system. We trialed both of those, saw a lot of positive results of obtaining some of the key metrics that we watch for the performance of the uncertainty requirements. And I'll go to the next slide and recommend what our overall next steps are. So the next steps we have is to change that date type configuration within the Mosaic methodology. That is ultimately a BPM change. So the stakeholders will see that through the BPM change process, be able to comment on it before we go forward and change it, but it's something we can do in 2024, and we're targeting Q1 of 2024. The second thing is that historical sampling. We really want to be able to look in the rearview mirror and in the forward, not just in the rear view. That is something that does look like it can happen in 2024 as well. We're working with the IT group internally to see when that system change can be done. It does require an enhancement in the technology, but looks like it's obtainable in 2024. That also is a BPM change, so the stakeholders will be able to comment on that process and see that process within any of the BPM updates. The last couple things that we have in relation to some of the comments that have come in was really about the use of Mosaic within different market features. So like we talked about, Mosaic is used for FRP, the flexible ramp requirements. It's also used for the resource efficiency evaluation. And that's really important to note. And one of the things that we want to talk further with the stakeholders about is the use of Mosaic within all those different market features. Where are their concerns? What do they see from their side so that we can work together collaboratively to address the needs of the stakeholders? Within that, that is going to happen in the RSEE 3 stakeholder initiative, which will kick off this year. And the other piece is there the possibility to limit the hourly changes to the Mosaic input into the resource efficiency evaluation? One of the things that happens when you put real-time forecast information into a method, it updates, right? You're putting a 5-minute update of forecast in, it is going to cause it to update. This particular one updates 15 minutes. Is it possible to limit those hourly changes to Mosaic to be able to assist with the resource efficiency evaluation concerns? Again, this really has to be collaboratively decided, discussed. So we want to do that within the RSEE 3 stakeholder initiative. There's a couple other next steps on there. Awareness of future requirements, load forecasting. You typically post like a rolling 9-hour forecast. In renewables, you see a rolling 9-hour forecast as well. There's a lot of information for the stakeholders to be able to get what their requirement is on OASIS, but you do have to put some information together to be able to get there. Do we need further visibility of a rolling requirement forecast for them to be able to use those in the RSE, use those in their market decisions? And lastly, we haven't talked about it much, is thresholds. Overall, any method that you do forecasting has what I call bumper rails on it, right? Because you're doing a real-time forecast. That means that there could be bad data that ends up going into that real-time forecast. So you have to have bumper rails on it. One of the things that this has is it has some bumper rails, and we want to look at what those bumper rails do and see if there's any potential modifications that need to be done there. But we do not want to do that until after we make the 2 foundational changes at the top. It's really important to put those changes in, then look at the bumper rails and see if anything else needs to be modified there. But overall, we're happy to see the performance of the Mosaic methodology performing really well during those low uncertainty period of times and the high uncertainty period of times during those critical time periods. It's always forecasting. It doesn't matter if it's load, renewable, uncertainty forecasting. It's always an area of continued improvement. Uncertainty forecasting is really in its infancy. You see that many of the ISOs and RTOs are developing their uncertainty forecasting products right now. And we have uncertainty forecasting products out there, but it's an area that's going to evolve and change, just like load forecasting is, just like renewable forecasting has done over the years. And the goal is to get the best product out there for all of the market participants to be able to utilize. And with that, I just want to thank those that are collaborating with us. It's a big product, and having the valuable insight of the Department of Market Monitoring, the Market Surveillance Committee, the researchers that also have helped along the way for these products has been really helpful and will continue to be really helpful to go forward. So with that, I will thank you all for the opportunity to talk to you about forecasting. I'm always here and appreciative of talking about forecasting in any capacity, and I'll take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Amber. Any questions from the governing body or the board? And I see a couple of hands popping up. Anita, I think you were first.
Great presentation and great explanation of kind of where this is. And I've been following it a bit, and just so one of the things, this was something stakeholders, and I can remember when stakeholders said, oh, we want to use a different kind of methodology. And then, so we put the mosaic in, and now stakeholders are still not happy with it. Is it a thing of being not happy with implementation? So that's one question. And then the second question is, I actually have three questions. So that's one question, is that they're just not happy with how it's being implemented. The second is, on the RSCE timing, if it's going to kick off in 2024, will it be done in 2024, or is that going to be a 25? And if people are still a little uncomfortable with where we are, is it going to be a long time before they see changes that are implemented that make it more what they had in their mind, I guess? And then the third one I can't remember anymore, so let me just do those two.
Good. I was grabbing a pen because I was like, wait, I got a pen for. So the first one was in relation to implementation. I don't think it's an implementation concern. I think it's a new methodology, and it updates. I think that's the big piece that we've heard a lot of feedback on. When you feed information on the forecasting side in, you get further updates than you had in the previous methodology. So I think that's really where that piece is coming from. As it relates to the overall implementation side of it, I think a lot of that's going to depend on what comes up in the stakeholder initiative, and if that requires software enhancements or if it's something that could be done in configuration changes. So I think that will determine it. Do I suspect that some of that will bleed into 2025? Most likely, I would say yes. But if there is something that can be done that doesn't require software enhancements, like the two items that we brought forth, we're going to work to improve it as quickly as we possibly can based on that feedback.
Okay, and I did remember my third question. Sorry, Rob. So my third question was, in reading the MSC's view of this and reading DMM's perspective, I mean, they have a lot of concerns. And I know you said that you're working with them, and do you think the concerns are going to get resolved, I guess is what I'm looking at? Because, they're saying, not sure this was the right thing to do, or not sure this was the way it should be implemented.
Yeah, I think that we take that feedback, right? And I always look at it, when you get 3 meteorologists in a room, you might get 3 different temperature forecasts too. But one of the things that is really important is we have that collaboration with these ideas. This is a new forecasting technique, ultimately. The analysis is important to look at holistically through across different performance variables. But it's also important to look at it not just at the EIM area or the passing group, but you have to look at it from the BAA perspective as well. And I think that they have points, and we want to work further with them to gain alignment, to make sure that we're all doing the best possible uncertainty forecast that we can.
Thank you, Anita. Rob, you have your hand up.
I do. Thank you. Amber, thank you for the presentation. I really appreciate the background and process that you provided the overview on. And I especially appreciated the conclusions and next steps. I think that's spot on. And it really leads right into the questions that I've got for you. And just, you know, Amber, that they might be a little bit broader, and if Anna or somebody else needs to chime in, I hope they do so. So Anita touched on it a little bit, and you know, one thing that started the request for this presentation was the DMM November 20th memo, and it provided what I thought were some very legitimate issues that should be addressed. And you know, we weren't able to go into the detail at that time. And the question I've got for you is, as you looked at that material that they provided in that November report, do you think that what you presented us today is on the right track in addressing those issues that were addressed in the report?
I mean, I hope so. That's the overall intent. I think some of the things that you saw within the report was a concern on the historical data and the sampling scheme, right? I think when you go through their executive talking points, those are two things that they had highlighted throughout there. They also highlighted, you know, the use of it in the different market features and the concerns of it with the RSE. I know that some of these things we can do in configuration changes, which we've brought forward to the board. But some of these things really are going to need stakeholder input of the concern as well as the solution. And we feel that it's really, really appropriate to take those into a stakeholder policy initiative to be able to work those out. And the other elements that are there, I think that we'll continue to work with the DMM and bring forward more pieces as well. And then I'll pause and see if Anna wants to expand any further.
Well, I'll make a couple of comments, but I think, Amber, you addressed the question correctly. And I think we do take these things, including the DMM's comments, obviously very seriously. And our goal is having, you know, actually try to address certain aspects of the prior methodology. And I think what's key in DMM's comments is that I think they recognize, you know, in our discussions with DMM, that the old methodology was perhaps not the best, and there might be alternative methodologies that we want to look at. But the whole point right now is to really evaluate this methodology that we adopted. And I want to note that, you know, yes, we continue to work collaboratively with DMM, but this is also the start of our discussion with stakeholders on our evaluation of the performance of the methodology. So it's not really the end, it's really the start, and definitely working with the stakeholders and DMM, and everyone will come up with the best approach to whether we stick with this methodology, change the methodology, evolve the methodology. But the whole point is to make sure that the methodology that we end up with does the best job in ascertaining the uncertainty, and also is something that is, you know, that the participants in the market can actually understand and replicate and make sure that they are able to operate in the resource efficiency evaluation effectively. And we took those comments and the suggestions made from DMM very seriously. But I just want to say, this is not the end of our efforts here. It's really the start. And I want to emphasize that if there are low-hanging fruit and methodology enhancements that we can make, we will do those. As Amber noted, there's a few items that we think we can adopt very quickly. But moving on to an entirely new methodology might take some additional time. So there is no secret, there's no one solution here that we can just pop in and resolve any concerns. We really have to do some additional exploration to get to the right place.
Great. Thank you, Anna.
Hey, Roger, I have a follow-up, if you don't mind.
Okay.
And so Amber, Anna, so I don't know if you've had the opportunity to see the DMM report that we had for this meeting. It was dated February 1st, and it covered the residual unit commitment process. And it sort of overlaps some of the issues that were raised in the November report. And it ties into what Anita was asking about, is when looking at that report, and especially looking at when the implementation was used by system operators, and you look at the RUC adjustments, there was some pretty dramatic changes. And, you know, it raises the question that, Amber, that you touched on is the methodology understood? Is it being implemented as anticipated? Is there something else going on? You know, and you know, when we look at the impacts to RSE, you know, we certainly want to make certain that all the participants understand it, and so that they can make certain that they're using the methodology to make certain that they are in conformance with the RSE. And then, of course, we don't see the load adjustments by system operators. So is this something on the timing process that might get addressed prior to the RSE phase 3? And it could be addressed more quickly? Or that's something that you're perceiving right now that needs to wait for phase 3?
I'll take the first shot at that. So the residual unit commitment reference in the DMM report, I have not had a chance to really evaluate exactly what they said, but I will share with you that we did start using this methodology in the residual unit commitment process. We tested it, we looked at it a little bit more closely. Was it working very well? We did find there were some issues, and we immediately took action to enhance that process. And so some of the issues that were observed previously, we don't anticipate having those same issues. But it does go to, you know, the application of the process. And what we're very cognizant of is that you can't just apply this approach in all aspects of the market. And there are times when there are adjustments that need to be made. And what we did do in that particular case was we were trying to incorporate some, you know, automation through those processes, but we recognized that there was, you know, we weren't getting the results we wanted, if you wish, out of that approach. And so we took action immediately to change that and enhanced our procedures for the adjustment of the residual unit commitment procurement targets. With regards to, like, well, you know, do we want to make sure, for example, in the resource efficiency evaluation, that we're using the best tool? Absolutely. And if the uncertainty, I think clearly from our analysis, the uncertainty estimates we had before were, we don't think we're as good as what we get from the quantile regression, but there are some enhancements that need to be made to enhance the quantile regression. That's not to say that going back to where before is a better place, which was the use of the histogram, which was a much more blunt instrument, if you wish, and gave rise to all the issues that got us to here today. So yes, we are going to evaluate this with stakeholders, and if there's a need to make changes, we will make those changes. We did not take, you know, action until today because we're still in evaluation mode, but that's what we're looking into.
Okay. Thank you, Anna. I see Anita has her hand up again.
Let me just say, if I could, if it's okay by Chair Shorey and Chair Campbell, if this is something that we can follow up on at a subsequent meeting, not necessarily the March meeting, but maybe the May meeting, to see where we are. Again, we can check in to see if it's appropriate, to see how it's progressing and what we're seeing. Just because it's a fairly significant issue that you know, doesn't seem to necessarily, you know, rise to a high level, but has potentially just some significant impacts. And I do think we really want to make certain that we're comfortable that it's moving forward and being addressed. So with that, I'll conclude. Thank you.
Rob, this is Jan, and I would just echo that in light of the fact that we actually do not very often get situations where we're getting some advice from the MSC and from DMM, and it's always worthwhile to follow up on that and see if the issues are getting resolved and if we're all still comfortable that we're on the right path. I don't know what the right time frame is. That may be too quick to try and think we can get it done certainly by March, but even May. So I would defer to the staff to come back at the right time when they feel they have something we could further discuss.
Thank you.
This
Thank
is
you.
Anna. I'd
So,
be
Anna, let me just, we have 3 minutes before the board general session is supposed to start. So I don't know if we can conclude this. And I do have
That'd be
a hand
wise.
up by Anita. And so let me, Anita, did you have a additional comment?
I do. So I guess I'm curious, and I don't need an explanation right now. Again, we can always follow up. But it seems to me like when there's software changes, such as implementing this, that sometimes they run in parallel for a while before we'll make the changes and then hope that they work out. So I'm surprised that this wasn't one that wasn't run in parallel, and then stakeholders could see like what the upshot was going to be versus implementing it and then trying to fix it after the fact.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that comment, Anita. I think I can take that. We do run simulations on these ahead of time and in parallel before it was going live. I do believe there was a market simulation period that was open for this one for the customers to be able to see the changes. And I just want to emphasize, I mean, this uncertainty forecasting is a new product, right, across the board. Incorporating forecast information into it, it really is key to be able to get the lower requirements during the low uncertainty periods and the higher requirements in the other time of the periods. But it comes with movement. And I think that that's where those discussions will really happen within the stakeholder initiative to see what the best plan overall is. And then it goes across to all the other methods that are there, right? We have more net load uncertainty. We need to account for that. We need to account for it in the day ahead process and in the real-time process where RUC is really important. But I think one of the things that we can commit to is that that chapter book is going to be open. We're going to be collaborative and we can continue to move forward with them.
just in the
Thank you,
interest of
Amber.
time, I think perhaps for today, we've exhausted our time and we are more than happy to come back with additional briefings on this topic. If March is too soon because we don't have new material, we'll come back a little bit later. But I will take it on to come back to you and give you some additional opportunity to share where we're at, as well as questions on this topic.
And with that, if we may, Silas, can we see if there's any public comment?
If you would like to make a public comment, please press #2 on the phone only line, or you can press the raise hand icon at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Seems there are no hands up in the comment queue at this time.
Thank you, Silas. At this point, we have agenda item number 6, which is our informational reports, and they are just that, for information, but it's an opportunity for the board or the governing body if they have any questions on the informational reports. And so I'll take a look for hands on those. Seeing none, we may adjourn. The general session minute for the board started a minute ago, but we're obviously going to delay that for about 5 minutes to give everyone an opportunity for a break. It will still be on this line. So those that are attending the Board of Governors general session, you may stay on the line. Please put your phones on mute and shut off your video, and we'll be back. I would suggest at, well, it's 2:16 now, so why don't we make it 2:20? And just give us 4 minutes to kind of transition, because Mary has a hard stop at 3 o'clock. Great. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. We'll see